Today's video is dedicated to all those people who believe that animation is a medium for children. We promise you there's nothing childish about any of the anime on this list. On the contrary, there's some of the most nightmarish tales to come out of this medium or any other, and we couldn't be more excited to introduce you to these horrific shows and films. These are our top 20 absolutely perfect horror animes, and honestly, they'll haunt you for the days to come. Perfect Blue! What can we say about Perfect Blue that hasn't been said a million times before? Satoshi Kon's magnum opus is definitely one of the most definitive works in this genre, and for good reason. Perfect Blue is the story of a retired pop singer turned actress, Mima, whose sense of reality slowly begins to slip away as she's haunted by her past as well as an anonymous stalker. It's probably one of the greatest works of psychological fiction ever, and has even been compared to Alfred Hitchcock's masterpieces. Mima is a pop idol who's literally worshipped by a legion of fans until one day her popularity just begins to fade away. Thus, she decides to make a transition and try her hand at acting. As a successful pop star, she's quickly offered a role in a soap opera, but Mima's character is far more adult than the likable personality she adopts as a singer. Despite this, Mima reluctantly agrees to the job offer. Slowly, Mima feels her grip on reality beginning to slip away and is haunted by the constant sense that her life is not her own. Things get even crazier when Mima begins to feel that mirror image of herself that is aware of every single intimate detail of her life. Moreover, she's being stalked by a strange man who seems to be keeping a watch from the shadows. As the story progresses, Mima's associates begin to receive threats and are even killed. Mima descends into paranoia and her life begins to unravel in a way that makes it impossible to distinguish between fact and fiction. This story came out in 1997 and is still relevant due to its razor-sharp observations about the human psyche and celebrity culture. If you're into cerebral stories that stick with you for weeks afterwards, you simply can't miss Perfect Blue. Another! Over the years, we've seen numerous anime and manga that take place around high schools. After all, what other place could be more dramatic? Though Another has a similar setting, it still ends up being completely different. This series is based on the work of Yukito Ayatsuji. The show was adapted into an adult anime series in 2012. The central character or mystery of the show is a girl named Misaki. She used to be an honor student at Yomiyama North Middle School's Class 3-3 back in 1972, but passed away in the middle of the school year. As you can probably expect, the rest of the students in her academic year were completely devastated by the loss and decided to pretend that she had never really died. Her friends believed in this farce to such an extent that they literally brought her desk to the graduation ceremony. Another strange thing happened at that graduation ceremony though. Misaki, who had been dead and buried for quite some time, mysteriously appeared in the graduation photo. Many years later, in 1998, a boy named Koichi Sakakibara is transferred to the same class and begins to sense an ominous atmosphere emanating from the class. He's especially fascinated by a strange girl who's extremely aloof and wears an eye patch. The girl always seems to sit alone, constantly drawing pictures. The most disturbing fact, however, is that the rest of the class doesn't seem to acknowledge it. We'll give you just one guess as to the identity of this girl. Well, it's Misaki, of course. This is a horror story, after all. Happy Sugar Life! If you've ever thought that cute anime characters couldn't scare the crap out of you, think again, because Happy Sugar Life is a show that's anything but happy. This horror anime is based on the manga series written by Tomoyaki Kagisora and ran from 2015 to 2019. It focuses on a young high school student named Matsuzaka who ends up befriending a rather strange little girl called Shio. Turns out that Shio was abandoned at a young age by her mother, and thus she becomes incredibly attracted to Sato. Soon, the pair begin living together in Sato's apartment. As the bond between the two girls grows stronger, something much darker begins to fester under the surface. Matsuzaka's love for Shio begins to grow into something ominous, and he vows to protect their bond even if it means crossing a few boundaries. Eventually, Matsuzaka's infatuation leads her towards committing some really heinous crimes, like murder. Obviously, this isn't a show for the faint of heart, but you should give it a watch if you want to witness a really dark take on human relationships. Mononoke! Mononoke is a horror series that actually serves as a spin-off to the 2006 horror anthology series called Ayakashi Samurai Horror Tales. However, this series, directed by Kenji Nakamura, is so masterful that it's gained a life of its own. The show follows a wandering, nameless character known only as the Medicine Seller as he travels across Japan in the turbulent period between the Edo and Meiji eras. The world here is divided by a stringent class system that places samurai on the highest tier, while merchants like medicine sellers find themselves on the lowest rung of society. The series is made up of numerous chapters in which our protagonist encounters and combats Mononoke, which is a type of unnatural spirit. These spirits are filled with negative emotions and end up binding themselves to the human world, causing all sorts of trouble. The seller uses his knowledge of the supernatural to fend off these nefarious spirits while he works on finding the spirit's shape, truth, and reasoning. Once he becomes aware of these aspects, he's able to unsheath his sword and exercise. This series almost functions like a road film, with supernatural threats around every corner, which makes it one of the most unique tales on this list. Junji Ito Maniac. No discussion about Japanese horror is complete without a mention of the prolific Junji Ito, a man who has made his career by scaring the crap out of us. In 2023, Netflix adapted 20 of Ito's most terrifying tales into a series known as Junji Ito Maniac, Japanese Tales of the Macabre. It features adaptations of tales like Tomi, which is the story of a gorgeous girl who ends up driving people to insanity. Then there's the tale of the hanging balloons, where giant floating heads appear above a town and begin hunting down their human counterparts. Each of the episodes is a complete narrative and features some of the most nightmarish imagery you've ever seen. Yami Shibai. The name Yami Shibai translates to dark plays, and well, that's exactly what these stories are. The show functions as a collection of shorts, with each segment lasting for just a few minutes. It also borrows from different mythological tales and urban legends popular in Japan, giving it a distinct flavor. The story begins with an old man in a yellow mask known as the Kami Shibaya, who arrives at a playground every week at exactly 5 p.m. He then proceeds to narrate ghost stories using the traditional Japanese craft of Kami Shibai, drawing inspiration from Japanese folklore. Yami Shibai is also popular for incorporating a different setting and approach for each of its seasons, which helps keep things fresh. For example, the old man is replaced by a boy in season 3. He narrates the stories while singing and drawing creatures from the story. At the end of each episode, the narrator's mask sings the closing song to him and keeps multiplying with each episode. In the final episode, the mask can be seen appearing on the boy's face. In season 4, the Kami Shibaya returns and resumes narrating stories to the children every week at 5. These changes continue throughout the seasons until season 9, where the Kami Shibaya can be seen narrating stories to animals from the Chinese zodiac. We won't spoil the 10th and final season just yet, but remember, this tale is just as absurd as it is scary. Dark Gathering. Dark Gathering is another horror series that deserves a mention on this list because of its ominous atmosphere and dark tone. The show premiered in July of 2023 and has been garnering praise from horror fans ever since. It's adapted from a manga series by Kenichi Kondo and is a strange mixture of comedy, horror, and shonen tropes. The tale centers around Keitaro Gentuga, a young man who has always had a strange disposition towards the spirit world. No matter what he does, Keitaro always seems to attract spirits, and this gets him hired as a tutor for a young girl named Yayoi. Despite her young age, Yayoi is someone who can clearly see spirits of all kinds, and she recruits Keitaro for a quest that takes them to some rather dark places. Their goal is to find Yayoi's mother, but even the most casual of fans will say that this kind of stuff is never easy in the world of anime. Shiki. Shiki is a series that was adapted from a manga written by Ryu Fujisaki, which is itself an adaptation of a novel by Fuyumi Ono. The tale unfolds in a strange little town called Sotoba in rural Japan, which is suddenly haunted by a series of bizarre deaths. The story takes place during a particularly hot summer in 1994, when the quaint little village of Sotoba begins to witness some rather inexplicable deaths. This happens just after the Stange family moves into the long-abandoned Kanemasa mansion, which overlooks the village from the tip of a hill. The first one to die is Megumi Shimizu, a young girl who wants to escape the village and move into the city. She was found dead in the forest soon after visiting the family. Toshio Ozaki, the dean of the only hospital in Sotoba, begins suspecting an epidemic has found its way to their town. As the investigation continues, even more deaths rock the village, and soon Toshio becomes convinced that the murders are being caused by the undead. Vampire Hunter D. This is definitely one of the more well-known series on this list. After all, it's been a part of the pop culture zeitgeist since 1983. It follows D, the titular vampire hunter, through an apocalyptic future where Earth has nearly been destroyed by nuclear war. Now, the planet is filled with ancient demons, mutants, and cyborgs, all trying to get their own piece of the pie. The series combines various genres like westerns, sci-fi, horror, and dark fantasy, making it truly one of a kind. The tale unfolds in a land that was once ruled by the cruel vampires known as nobles. After years of dominance, the cruel bloodsuckers are finally beginning to lose their grip on the world, and society is returning to some semblance of order. This shift in power has also led to the rise of a caste of independent hunters for hire who are well versed in eliminating supernatural threats. Dee, the half-breed child of a vampire and a human, is one such hunter and is renowned for the unearthly grace he displays while eradicating the nobility from the earth. This series is extremely vast, and as of February 2024, 55 novels have been published as part of the main series. Elfin Lied. Elfin Lied is a story created by the renowned mangaka Lin Okamoto, whose name translates into Elf Song. It's a sci-fi tale that follows the Diclonia, a species that has evolved from humans with two elf-like ear horns and invisible vectors, which are essentially transparent telekinetic arms. These arms are surprisingly powerful and can be used to both manipulate and slice objects within reach. Moreover, these arms are also capable of infecting human males with a virus that causes their children to be born as Diclonius. However, these children are bound to murder their families sooner or later, and because of this, they're usually sent off to a government facility off the coast of Kamakura. At the beginning of the story, officials from the Japanese government arrive at the facility to ascertain whether its massive budget is really justified. They receive a definitive answer at the hands of Lucy, the first of the Diclonius race, who effortlessly kills a bunch of guards without breaking a sweat. She makes her way out of the facility but falls when a sniper hits his mark. However, the bullet doesn't kill her. She falls into the sea, and the head scientist, Kurama, vows to retrieve her and kill her, as he has already seen someone she cares about die because of Lucy. The show uses all its gore and violence in order to take a look at the interactions between humans and Diclonius, providing us with a poignant look at the tension that exists between the two species. Parasyte. Parasyte, the Maxim, is an anime that was adapted from Hitoshi Iwaki's critically acclaimed manga and is revered as one of the greatest works in this genre. It follows high school senior Shinichi Fukuyama. One night, tiny worm-like aliens invade the planet and begin taking over living things as hosts by entering their bodies through their ears and noses. This might sound horrifying just by itself, but it keeps getting worse. One such parasite manages to crawl into Shinichi's nose but fails to take over his body because Shinichi wakes up. It ends up burrowing into the guy's arm instead and takes over his right arm. Since Shinichi is able to prevent the parasite from taking over his body, the two begin to coexist within the same body. As the series progresses, Shinichi and the parasite, named Migi, develop a strange bond and begin working together to ensure their survival. They encounter numerous other parasites along the way and capitalize on their situation to gain an edge over other parasites in battle. The series takes a deep dive into philosophical themes like the meaning of humanity and our relationship with our environment. Shinichi's bond with Migi leads our protagonist to begin doubting whether humanity really has any right to claim moral superiority over the parasites. Well, if you like deep thoughts like that, you should probably watch Parasyte. Devilman Crybaby. The Devilman Crybaby anime series is based on Go Nagai's manga Devilman and was acclaimed worldwide when its adaptation arrived on Netflix. Though the original series is set in the 1970s, the 2018 adaptation updates the setting to the 21st century but still retains the basic premise of Nagai's manga. The story follows Akira Fudo and his best friend Ryo Asaka as they fight their way through an ancient race of demons who want to eradicate humanity. The duo begins believing that the only way to truly defeat the powerful demons would be to obtain their own demonic abilities. Thus, Ryo proposes that Akira unite with a demon, turning our protagonist into the titular Devilman. Though this transformation provides Akira with a bunch of powers usually found only in demons, he still manages to retain the soul of a human being. Though the original Devilman focused more on anti-war themes, the anime has interpreted this story as a metaphor for bigotry. Paranoia regarding the demons is extremely prevalent throughout the show, and they serve as an allegory for the other. The show also takes a look at themes like puberty, sexuality, love, and LGBTQ identities. Despite this, the show has an entirely nihilistic perspective on the world, making it much more complex than most stories in the horror genre. Miruku-chan. The English title for this series is The Girl Who Can See Them, so I guess it's pretty easy to imagine what it might be about. The series is adapted from a manga series written and illustrated by Tomoki Izumi and has 11 tankobon volumes released so far. The show follows the unfortunate adventures of our protagonist Miko, who gains the ability to see grotesque monsters all around her. But instead of being terrified like most of us would be, Miko decides to just ignore them in pursuit of a normal high school life. Throughout the series, we catch glimpses of her daily life as she tries her best to go on despite the supernatural tomfoolery all around her. Ghost Hunt. Ghost Hunt, originally titled Akurio, is a light novel series created by Fuyumi Ono, which was adapted into an anime series that premiered in 2006. It focuses on the adventures of the Shibuya Psychic Research Organization, or the SPR, as they investigate paranormal events all across Japan. The series follows the ghost hunting adventures of Mai Taniyama, a first-year high school student who becomes part of SPR as well as its young manager, Kazuya. The team is eventually joined by other members like Buddhist monk Hosho Takigawa, shrine maiden Ayako Matsuzaki, celebrity teen psychic Masako Hara, and even a Catholic priest named John Brown. Over the course of the series, we explore the paranormal abilities of each of these characters, especially Mai's latent psychic powers. Due to this, she often tends to dream about a spirit guide who reveals information relevant to the case. Initially, Mai learns that the guide in her dreams is none other than Kazuya, but we eventually learn that it's actually Naru's twin brother who died a long time ago. Ayakashi Samurai Horror Tales is an anthology series from 2006 that brings to life 3 supernatural horror tales that are firmly rooted in Japanese folklore. Each of these stories blends together numerous genres like horror, tragedy, and samurai drama to create an unbearably eerie atmosphere that'll keep you hooked till the end. The first story is called Yotsuya Kaidan and is a chilling adaptation of Japan's most famous ghost story, which follows Oiwa, a woman wronged by her unfaithful husband. She eventually turns into a ghost who just can't wait to exact her revenge. This is a tale where the supernatural world mingles with inherently human traits like betrayal and vengeance. The next tale is called Tenshu Monogatari and is a tragic romance between a human samurai and a mysterious woman residing in a forbidden castle. It delves into themes of love and duty as the boundaries between the mortal and spirit worlds become indistinguishable. The final tale is a mystery about a traveling medicine seller who must battle the vengeful spirit of a cat. This story has an incredibly striking visual style and surprising visual depth, due to which it was even adapted into a spin-off series called Mononoke. Corpse Party. Corpse Party: Tortured Souls is a 2013 horror anime that's inspired by the extremely popular survival game Corpse Party. Once again, the story follows a group of high school students who end up performing a mysterious ritual that transports them into a cursed institution known as the Heavenly Host Elementary School. As you can probably tell by now, this institution is filled to the brim with nightmarish spirits and grotesque monsters that endanger our heroes. We can only watch as our protagonist's innocent gathering turns into a struggle for survival against grotesque monstrosities that we can barely comprehend. They're forced to uncover dark secrets behind the school intruder to escape and find the institution's halls haunted by numerous other children who were murdered in this domain. This dimension subjects the group to unbearable psychological and physical torment and is almost too much to take at times. Corpse Party is also famous for the extreme violence and gore depicted in its story, and the anime doesn't shy away from showcasing even the most terrifying of events in shocking detail. Due to the intense atmosphere, chilling soundtrack, and disturbing visuals, Corpse Party is a must-watch for fans of horror and gore, but be warned, this one isn't for the faint of heart. Made in Abyss. Though Made in Abyss doesn't feel like a traditional horror anime at first glance, it might just be one of the most horrifying series on this list. On one hand, Made in Abyss is a visually stunning masterpiece with cute characters that have your heart from the moment you see them. On the other hand, it's a series that is literally defined by a colossal abyss at the center of its world. Our protagonist is Riko, a fearless explorer who's hell-bent on discovering the secrets hidden within the chasm. Her ultimate objective is to reunite with her mother, a renowned explorer who disappeared in the abyss many years ago. But as we already told you, stuff like this is never easy in the world of anime. One day, Riko discovers Reg, a robotic companion with mysterious origins, and they decide to embark on a perilous descent together. Along the way, the pair encounters increasingly bizarre creatures and environments, even discovering the remnants of a lost civilization. The horror of this show comes from the unforgiving and treacherous environment that our characters are placed in. As they plunge deeper into the abyss, they must face the emotional toll of personal losses and uncomfortable truths, all the while pursuing knowledge that is clearly forbidden to them. Belladonna of Sadness, 1973. 1973's Belladonna of Sadness is a hypnotic avant-garde film that's definitely not meant for kids. This strange mixture of eroticism, surrealism, and historical tragedy is an experience you definitely won't forget. The tale centers around Jean, a young woman in medieval France who's brutally assaulted on her wedding night by a tyrannical lord. To make things worse, she's ostracized by the rest of the village and finds herself all alone. This is when Jean encounters a demonic spirit that tempts her monster with unimaginable power and leads her down a path of rebellion, sexual awakening, and mysticism. Over the course of the story, Jean adopts the forbidden arts and turns into a symbol of resistance. This series is a true visual treat as it looks more like a moving art gallery than an anime. It's created from watercolor paintings that depict dreamlike imagery that's both beautiful and provocative. The score is also pretty psychedelic, which creates an atmosphere that's unlike anything you've seen before. Demon City Shinjuku, 1988. Demon City Shinjuku is an anime film created by some true veterans like Yoshiki Kawajiri and Hideyuki Kikuchi, who have always been known for their provocative styles. This dark and action-packed anime is a strange blend of cyberpunk and horror, which unfolds in a ruined and demon-infested version of Shinjuku. About a decade before the beginning of the story, a powerful sorcerer named Rebi Ra unleashed a catastrophic spell on the region, turning it into a wasteland haunted by demonic entities and grotesque nightmares. The sorcerer intends to open the gates of hell, which is a surefire way of plunging the human world into complete chaos. Fortunately, our protagonist, Kiyoya Izuyoi, is there to save the day. He's the son of a legendary warrior who once failed to stop Rebi Ra. Though Kiyoya is initially reluctant to shoulder the responsibility of a warrior, he's forced into action when he finds that his world's fate rests on his shoulders. This series is defined by its eerie atmosphere and neon-lit visuals, which makes it a must-watch for fans of 80s anime. They just don't make them like this anymore, do they? Marvelous verdict! I guess this list is enough to prove that anime can get really terrifying at times. Contrary to popular belief, this is a medium that's capable of surprising emotional and psychological depth that can genuinely drive you into a pit of despair. Anime also allows the creation of incomprehensible monsters that are impossible to depict in live action. Perhaps this is why we love all these shows so damn much. If you do end up watching some of these, prepare for sleepless nights because you never know what might be lurking in the shadows or under your bed or in the closet. Have you checked there yet? Anyways, let us know which of these series is your favorite down in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel in order to stay up to date with all of our marvelous content. Goodbye for now, but we'll catch you soon in the next one.